Another new Pokemon game, another excuse for people to dump on the franchise. I've just about accepted at this point that the series will be hated on until Game Freak caters to fans by releasing a Pokemon game that features every region, and is an MMO, and has every Pokemon, and is free, and features voice acting, and looks like this, and pays you to play the game, and also releases physically and not on a keycard. But let's be fair here, some of the Pokemon games do have legitimate problems with them. Some get fixed with patches and updates, some don't. Some problems are just little oopsies, and some are rather big. Today, I want to take a look at Pokemon Champions and see what they did right, what needs improving, and most importantly of all, is this game actually bad? After making our character, we're immediately thrust into a tutorial that teaches us how single battles, type matchups, and the speed stat work. There are other tutorials as well, but they're all pretty basic. I feel like they could have been a lot more in-depth or had more of them. For example, there's a tutorial about weather, but they only go over rain. Why not talk about sun, sand, and snow? Same with the terrains, you only learn about psychic terrain. For someone like me who already knows all of this stuff by heart, it's not a big deal, but it still feels kind of odd. Plus, this leaves new players with an incomplete picture of these mechanics. After the single battles tutorial, we're introduced to this game's gacha system, where you can recruit Pokemon either temporarily for free or permanently for 2500 VP. Each pull of the gacha spits out 10 unique Pokemon. No duplicates can ever pop up per pull. This first pull is free and the results are always the same, so I just picked Tyranitar. Charizard and Palafin are also pretty good picks. Altaria and Pikachu have to be the funniest of the available options. Afterwards, we're given 5 other Pokemon for free, allowing us to build a team of 6 and start battling. As a quick side note, during the team building process, we're introduced to this Auto Team Build button, which automatically fills out our team and held items after manually adding just one Pokemon to the team. I don't trust this button though, because it gave a focus sash to my sturdy Aggron. I guess it's protecting from being O-code against Pokemon with Mold Breaker now, but this is still about as effective as Levitate on Fan Rotom. At this point, the game opens up to us and we're basically free to do whatever we want. We also get 10,000 VP and can get another 10,000 by completing the Double Battles tutorial. That's a total of 20,000 VP, which is a pretty generous amount. This leads into 2 questions. How easy is it to get VP once that 20,000 runs out? And then how difficult is it to get and train up a team of Pokemon? I'll talk about recurring VP sources later. For now, let's talk about getting and training Pokemon. I'm going to assume most people playing Champions, if not everyone, have access to at least one mainline Pokemon game on the Switch. This means it's incredibly easy to acquire and train up a team of Pokemon. If for some reason you don't have Scarlet and Violet, or Sword and Shield, or one of the Legends games, your ability to get the Pokemon you want will definitely be more RNG dependent, as you're at the will of the gacha and whatever gift Pokemon the devs decide to give us. On top of this, VP becomes more of a concern, as you'll have to spend 2500 VP to permanently recruit a Pokemon, plus additional VP on top of that to adjust a Pokemon's moves, ability, nature, and EVs. I haven't talked about training yet, but yes, to change moves, ability, nature, and EVs, you'll need to spend more VP. You'll need 250 VP per move you want to change, 500 VP for changing your ability and nature, and 5 VP per extra stat point granted by EVs. That's 330 VP for a complete overhaul of a Pokemon's EV spread. It's worth noting that removing EVs doesn't cost any VP, and I need to take a moment to say that I love how EVs are handled here. Easily not only the best and clearest representation of them we've had, but also the easiest method of changing EVs in the entire series. For all of the advancements recent Pokemon generations have made towards making competitive Pokemon more and more accessible, EVs were still a little mysterious and janky. Not only in terms of actually seeing how many EVs you have, but trying to remove EVs as well. I wrote up this whole post to one of my friend groups about how trying to adjust an already completed EV spread is this whole process in Scarlet and Violet. Meanwhile, in Champions, you just move a couple of sliders around. That's it. I really can't be clear enough how much I love what Champions did here, and how it makes the concept of EVs much more visible and understandable to newcomers, all without removing the depth and value of EVs and EV spreads. Like, even my mom could probably understand this, and if I told her my favorite Pokemon was Koffing, she'd hope my favorite, whoever it is, would get better soon. That's a lie, actually. I taught her what Koffing was a few weeks ago because I've had bronchitis for the better part of the past month. If you've never had bronchitis before, it involves so much coughing and pain. Please subscribe. So, catching a Pokemon requires VP, and changing elements about them requires VP. Except it doesn't. Recruiting a Pokemon and training a Pokemon both have tickets for them that you can acquire through various methods. You can exchange one ticket to completely null and void the VP cost with the respective activity. So I can use a ticket while trying to permanently recruit a Pokemon to negate the 2500 VP cost, and I can use a ticket while training a Pokemon to have their training be free. You can also get around these costs by bringing in Pokemon from Pokemon Home. Bringing in Pokemon from home not only costs 0 VP, but that Pokemon keeps its moves, ability, nature, and EVs. There doesn't seem to be a limit on how long they can stay in Champions, and if there's a limit on how many Pokemon you can bring from home, I haven't reached it yet. In other words, if you have access to Pokemon outside of Champions, congratulations, your VP costs have dramatically decreased. Even if you do all of your training in Champions and just send freshly caught Pokemon over, you're still saving a ton of VP by not needing to spend 2500 to recruit a Pokemon. Even if you don't have access to extra Pokemon from home, you still get a good amount of VP and a few of these tickets from missions and the free Battle Pass. Don't worry, I'll be touching upon monetization in just a minute. First, I want to take a moment to talk about actually getting VP. While we just established how easy it is to dramatically reduce VP costs, there are still other things we can spend VP on at the game's shop. Held items, clothes, poses, even overpriced music tracks all cost VP to buy. You do start out with a selection of held items and megastones for free, but getting more requires a trip to the store. Getting VP is pretty easy. Finishing battles, completing certain missions, and the last 20 levels of the current free battle pass at the very least, all give good amounts of VP. Winning a battle gives 300 VP, sometimes more if you're on a winning streak, while losing battles gives less. When it comes to missions and the battle pass, you tend to get between 500 and 2000 VP per accomplishment there. There are also achievements that yield varying amounts of VP too. I find I'm not struggling for VP in the slightest. Fair disclaimer though, I did buy the starter pack, which definitely does aid in not spending VP. For $6.99, you can buy the starter pack from the eShop, which comes with 50 additional storage spots for Pokemon, 50 training tickets, 30 recruitment tickets, and an extra music track. I find this to be a great aid, and almost kind of invalidates one of the other monetization options the game has. The 50 extra box spaces provides a great boost from the starting amount of 30, and the tickets provide a great launching pad for new players, while not necessarily giving them an unfair advantage. Remember, you can bypass recruitment and training in their entirety through Pokemon Home. While we're talking about monetization, there's also a premium battle pass that can be bought for $9.99, which provides a couple of Pokemon and some extra style options, alongside a membership that costs $4.99 monthly, or you can buy a year for $49.99. I don't see the value in the membership, to be completely honest. The extra music tracks locked behind it is extremely laughable, because you can just turn the music off in the game, pull open YouTube or whatever, and play any music you want, including the extra music tracks. Storage for 1000 Pokemon is complete overkill. The extra missions just grant recruitment and training tickets, and the extra 15 team slots, I mean, I guess this could be nice for VGC YouTubers, but I don't see most people needing this. 3 teams by default is a little restrictive feeling, but you can definitely make do with that many, especially since there are only 2 formats supported. I think that's something else that has people a little peeved about Champions. You can only do Battle Stadium singles, single battles where you bring 3 Pokemon out of your 6 Pokemon party, or VGC style matches, double battles where you bring 4 Pokemon. There's no option to do full 6-on-6 battles, not even in private matches. That's kinda dumb. Despite, for example, Scarlet and Violet only having ranked ladders for Battle Stadium singles and VGC matches, nothing stopped you from having a match with a friend using different rules. Why can't we do that here? The lack of other rule sets in private matches doesn't heavily detract from the experience, but it is an odd omission. The good news is that this is something that can easily be fixed via an update, much like the Pokemon and item rosters. Okay, that might have been a bit of a misleading segue because it makes it sound like I hate the Pokemon and item rosters. The truth is, I really enjoy formats with limited Pokemon. It gives way to creative team building and letting certain Pokemon enjoy the spotlight when they otherwise wouldn't. Look at VGC 2017, a format where only Pokemon in Sun and Moon's Pokedex could be used, and Golduck was a popular pick. Golduck! My mother probably doesn't know what Golduck is, or how shocking it is to hear there was a time where it was viable. If anything, she's probably confused about why a platypus is being called a duck. Now, I had a slight suspicion about the number of Pokemon available in Champions, so I went ahead and did a fun little experiment. I counted up all of the Pokemon that are usable in this first format of Champions, but I also added in the pre-evolutions that are missing, and I came out to 388 Pokemon. If we look at the regional Pokedexes of Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, Sword and Shield, and Scarlet and Violet, we'll see that 388 Pokemon is in the general ballpark of recent regional Pokedexes. In a sense, right now, we're playing in a format where we're only allowed to use Pokemon in Champion's theoretical regional Pokedex. And again, I don't think this is a bad thing. While having a larger selection would definitely be better, don't get me wrong, I'm definitely in the camp that this was done deliberately to ease in newer competitive players. Plus, I mean, it's standard for a competitive format to start out with just Pokemon in the regional Pokedex being allowed, and Champions is a game whose sole focus is competitive Pokemon battles. The limited item selection also points towards the decision to make Champions launch a kind of stepping stone to try and make competitive Pokemon as easy as possible to get into. Just take a look at the selection. Choice Scarf is here, but not Choice Spand or Choice Specs. No Life Orb, no Terrain Seeds, none of the items to extend Weather, Terrain, or Light Screen and Reflect, no Assault Vest, no Pinch Berries, probably a lot more that I'm forgetting about. Unlike with Pokemon selection, item availability is virtually never really tampered with. Even regional Pokedex formats will let players use stuff like Life Orb, Choice Specs, Assault Vest, so the decision to limit what items are initially available likely goes hand in hand with the smaller Pokemon selection. Like, I would appreciate being able to slap an Assault Vest on my Archaludon, but having limitations forces players to try new options, and I love that. And I think it's pretty safe to assume that other items and Pokemon will be added into the game as time goes on. I mean, items in the shop are sorted by new arrivals by default. We're definitely getting more items at some point. How fast they get added remains to be seen. Obviously, I'm writing this script less than a week after the game's release, but the lack of these Pokemon and items don't detract from the fact that, at the end of the day, I'm still having fun with battles. And as time goes on, things will likely only get better. More Pokemon and items will be added, glitches will get fixed. While Pokemon Champions may not have had the greatest reception, and it's not perfect, there are definitely some aspects I'd like to see fixed in future updates, like extra battle rules for private matches, more tutorials, or at least more fleshed out tutorials, and maybe even some offline content like CPU matches. I think Champions has done a great job at making competitive Pokemon more accessible than ever, and is a rare example of a free-to-play game, especially on mobile where Champions will release later this year, that doesn't stink of greed. Why is this game not at 60 FPS on Switch 2? I really don't care what a game's frame rate is, as long as frame rate drops are small or non-existent, but Scarlet and Violet run at a buttery smooth 60 FPS on Switch 2. Why is Champions only at 30? A big thank you to everyone for watching, and I hope you accept my sincerest apologies for how long it took for another video to come out. Winter has always been a tough time of year for me, and the past 6 months, even the past year arguably, have had a lot of turbulence to them. It's been really tough for me to write scripts, edit videos, and it's extremely frustrating for me, and I assume y'all as well, for there to be so many long gaps between videos, or even community posts updating everyone on what's going on. and I'm sorry for that. Contrary to what it might seem like with my upload frequency, I love being creative, I love making things, and I love being able to share my passions with y'all. So I hope I'm able to continue this at a somewhat consistent pace for a long while. I'd like to give an extra big thank you to Butterfly, Sedzi, Dunanix, and Stodge, along with the rest of my patrons scrolling by, not only for going the extra mile and supporting the channel, but for their continued support through this rough patch. Thank you, and I hope to see y'all in the next video.